this mic goes for each 2 people. Not each person gets a mic. So, where do you want to be? Where do you normally like? It's like you and Paul right next to each other. Okay. So Paul,
you're sitting in the wrong spot.
Yeah, that's Mike McIntyre's. Don't.
No, I think I'm here, aren't I?
No, you're there. Wait, that's why we got 5 of these. I don't know why that one's there.
Oh, so seat. Can you put some phone books or something on top of that?
Yeah. Yeah, let me pull you out here, Paul.
There's no way I'm actually going to be able to get up.
All right, so this mic will be for you two.
Okay.
All right. This mic is
Who
for
hits
you
first?
two, which is good because you two are the loudest too. Yeah. So.
Loudest and the dumbest.
I don't like all this.
The ones that know how to use a mic.
I don't like all these rules.
You can wheel around, man.
Yeah, right.
Have you thought about that?
All right, we're good.
Like, yeah, a vacuum.
Yeah.
This is great.
Be careful, don't kick that over.
That's gone.
What?
That apple juice here?
Welcome, everybody. Hello there. Good morning. Welcome. Wow, do I have to shout? It's such a big crowd today. Way in the back there. Can you hear us? Hey, way in the back there. Can you hear us?
No.
Let's turn it up a little bit. Apparently, they can hear us in the back. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our annual opening day breakfast. So glad to have all of you here. And welcome to our new venue, the lobby. This is awesome. Security has gotten really tight here at cleveland.com, and we couldn't get past the lobby, but you know what we're making do? We're gonna have a great time here. And lucky for all of you, the new podium is see-through, so enjoy that throughout the rest of the program. Thank you very much. So we do have a whole lot more people here than we've had in previous years. I'd like, if you could, to give me a show of hands. Who are folks who have been here more than a couple of times? Look at that.
What do you mean by a couple?
Like 2 is a couple, so more than a couple. And who are our first timers here? Welcome to you guys. Appreciate all of you for being here. Let me tell you how this goes. We fill ourselves up with bacon and baseball, and then we find something to do downtown for 7 hours until first pitch. Often that entails bourbon and beer, but you can do it however you guys want. This is a day, look at the day outside we have for baseball. It's the kind of day in which you say, let's play 2. Let's play 2 innings and get the hell off the field and go somewhere where it's warm and play again on a proper baseball day. But this is Cleveland. You know what this is? That's World Series training right there. That's the kind of weather we're going to be facing in the World Series. Let me introduce our panel to you today, our esteemed panel. First of all, you'll notice that we lost Zach Meisel. He was here last year. He went in free agency to an expansion franchise. It's called The Athletic. I want to say that inspired by that, the rest of our group here have started their own startup. It's called the Not At All Athletic. I lead that team today. My name is Mike McIntyre. I'm a columnist at The Plain Dealer. I write about the comedy scene as well as the politics scene. Sometimes they intertwine. I also host a show on WCPN called The Sound of Ideas, 9 o'clock weekdays, so feel free to listen to that. Obviously not today, because I'm here. With us today is Joe Noga. He's host of the weekly talk show, the podcast Talkin' Baseball. He's in his 2nd season on the cleveland.com baseball team, and he joins us there at the end of the row. Joe Noga.
All right, Joe.
I'm videoing this right now for Bud Shaw's Snapchat. If you're
terrific. Hey, Bud. I'll see you at the wedding tomorrow. His daughter's getting married. Also here is Doug Lesmerises. Did I get that right?
No. Not even close.
Okay. Doug Lesmerises, maybe? Yeah. Doug Lesmerises is with us, and he covers all kinds of Cleveland sports. He also, on cleveland.com, allows the cameras to tape his marital spats with Bud Shaw. I don't know if you guys have seen it. You should get it. It was Bud versus Doug. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's mostly Bud yelling and me nodding.
Exactly. It's an awesome show, so you should check that out. We're going to try to be a little more civil here today. That is Doug Lesmerises, everybody. Terry Pluto of the Plain Dealer needs no introduction. Terry Pluto, everybody.
I always sit next to Paul Hoynes because we both started writing stories on a typewriter.
It's like I said that to a guy once, and he stared at me and goes, "And I suppose you came to work in a stagecoach."
Wow. I love the fact that they sound sort of like an announcer from Municipal Stadium in 1973. But we're all used to that. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, there's Hoynesy, Paul Hoynes. Hoynes has been covering the Indians forever. I remember when Louis Sockalexis used to complain about your game stories. And it's not fair to call him not at all athletic. He's an incredible Arctic swimmer, I'm told. You guys remember that story? Somebody had to jump in the lake?
Not this year.
Not this year. This year, you're calling. Well, actually, let's start with that. So we're going to start with our predictions. By the way, we're going to be getting questions from you guys, and there's so many of you that I'm just going to basically get out of the way, believe it or not, and allow you guys to ask questions. But let's start with our predictions going down the line, starting with you, Paul. How are our Cleveland Indians, who have first pitch today at 4:05, how are they going to do this year?
Well, I think, they're going to be a very good club. I think they're going to win the division. I think they'll get it, get into the postseason. When I did my predictions, I said the Yankees beat them in the ALCS and the Yankees go to the World Series. So, but I can be changed. My mind can be swayed.
Did you give him a win total?
Yeah. Well, last year
It's not an essay question.
last year I picked 90 and they won 102. So I'm sticking at 90.
90 wins.
90 wins. Okay, 94 wins. I got him going to the ALCS, and that's as far as I've got him going. But I know nothing. I thought Trent Richardson was a really good draft pick.
He plays football. Actually, he doesn't.
Yeah, I basically agree. 90 or 91 wins. I have him also losing in the ALCS to the Yankees. But it's so hard. You can't predict playoffs now. There's so much luck. It's a crapshoot. It's who's hot at the end of the year. But I think you have to appreciate the fact that I think we're all going to sit up here and talk about, of course they're going to make the playoffs. And I hope everybody doesn't take that for granted whenever there is a team that you are all assuming are for sure going to be in the playoffs. That's kind of a cool way to start a season.
Yeah, I had him for 93 wins, and just doing the math against an AL Central division that has 3 rebuilding teams. You need about 50 wins total. So if you can find wins, 12 to 13 wins against the White Sox, Twins, Royals, and I think that's doable. So 93 wins. If they go 500 against the rest of the league, that's what they can go on.
This is our 9th year doing this event, and at least half of them I predicted an undefeated season. I wasn't right on those, and I'm not going to be right this year if I do that, so I won't do it. But I do want to say, you guys are laughing at me, but I know what I'm talking about. I'm going to read you a transcript from last year. Last year I said the Indians would go on a 22-game winning streak. That's what I said. You can check the record. I said they would end on September 15th with a 4-3 loss to the Kansas City Royals. I know what I'm talking about. I said we'd go 102-60 last year. Guess what? We went 102-60. So bank it. We're going to win 100 games this year. We are going to win the World Series, and hell will freeze over. All right, we've got these raffle tickets I'm going to be drawing for one of Terry Pluto's 93 books, 4 of which he wrote this morning. We have those. We've got some tickets to share with you as well through these raffle tickets. And we also have an opportunity to ask questions, and I'm going to start with that now. Let's get our question machine rolling here. Just raise your hand and we'll call on you. You got to catch the ball if you're going to answer the question or ask the question. You ready? Here it comes. Yep. Got it.
Always interested in the minor leagues. Who should we be looking at in the minor leagues who's coming up, who's going to do well, especially anybody that might not be on folks' radar? The second quick question is, what is it about the tribe elimination game?
Okay, so
I'm going to ask the question and hand the microphone to Paul.
Hang on one second. Let me repeat the questions as we're not on mic and people are going to be watching on cleveland.com. So the question was twofold. One, what about the minor leagues? Who's coming up? Maybe people we haven't heard of before. And secondly, what is it with the Indians and elimination games? Hoynesy?
In the minors, obviously, who's the kid? Francisco Mejia, the catcher, had a really good spring. You know, they think he's the best hitter in the minor league system. There's a reliever, Cam Hill, that did a nice job. He's on the DL right now. Willie Castro, a shortstop at Double-A, really I liked him. I don't know but if you're a shortstop in the Indians, you better change positions because I don't think Lindor's going anywhere for about 4 years. So, there's one other kid, Bobby Bradley, first baseman at Akron, you know, good player, and a kid, who's the kid? Bieber. Shane Bieber.
Not Justin Bieber.
Justin Bieber.
Shane Bieber's, you know, he's in the pipeline. If they run into pitching problems, he could be up here. He's starting at Double-A.
Before we get thoughts about the elimination game, I just love how Cleveland it is that the first question before the first pitch of opening day is, what about the minors? Who do we have coming? We always live for the next guy. By the way, the Browns draft is coming up too, our Super Bowl. What about the elimination games, Doug? Or
well, I was going to. Can I add on to the question before we move on? For you guys who would know better than me, of those minor leaguers, who will help the Indians this year, and who should be on the trading block to help the Indians? Because I feel I'm always very interested in your minor leagues can help you two ways. Francisco Mejia can come up and help this team with his bat, or he could be a great trade chip that would help maybe this team get over the top of the trade deadline. Who do you guys think can help this year, or should they trade this year?
Well, Mejia, with this thing where they want to work him in the outfield, clearly that's set to streamline him to come to the big leagues. The other thing there is, you know, if you trade him and he turns out he actually could play the outfield and you don't have any outfielders, I'm not sure that's really where you want to go down that road at all. Pitchers are always guys you could trade, you know, and people are looking at those kind of guys. I'll be just really curious to see how they handle that, because first of all, one thing about Chris Antonetti, whenever he makes a move, Paul, he always says we're done spending money. Remember that. They're always done spending money. And in the last 2 seasons, they added about $5 million in payroll in the middle of the season. And I think part of it, I know just talking to some people with the Indians, is, without naming names, other franchises in town make a lot of big promises, kind of overpromise and underdeliver. They sort of would prefer to underpromise and maybe once in a while overdeliver. And I think that's, you know, that's part of their thing. So just the fact that they haven't spent any more money up to this point doesn't preclude them doing that. I did a long story on John Sherman and how he came in to be a partner in that. And, you know, I asked him about the Dolans being cheap or whatever. He goes, well, all I know, since we got here, we've been as he's meant his family, we've been fairly assertive. And, you know, he talked about signing Encarnacion, trading for Andrew Miller was the first thing he was involved in. And he is a partner. I mean, it isn't just like where Jimmy Haslam with the Steelers, you know, he got good seats in the press box and free food. I mean, no, this was different. I mean, Sherman's part of their decision-making in terms of not what players to get, but how much money to spend and when to take a chance. And the fact that he made his money in natural gas and oil and pipelines, I mean, that's a lot of high-risk stuff, you know. So he's, where maybe some of the other owners are a little more risk-averse, he isn't. So, boy, there's a question nobody even wanted to ask.
Joe?
Just a couple more names to throw in with those prospects. Will Benson, an outfielder who they drafted a couple years ago. Last spring training game, he hit a home run, sort of gave a flash, an indication of what he could be in a couple of years down the line. And Tristan McKenzie, right-handed pitcher, is on the DL at High A Lynchburg. He could be possibly a trade chip down the road if they have to make a move late in the season this year, and he performs the way he did last year.
What about? Okay.
2 years ago, you know, they did trade prospects. They traded 4 of them for Miller, and they were going to trade 4 of them for who was the catcher? LaCroix. And that didn't go through, so they were willing to trade those guys.
If you name those prospects that would have gone the LaCroix deal, think about this. Mejia, Chang, who they like Chang quite a bit. I think they're going to move him to third. And Greg Allen. And the 4th one, I think, was Sean Armstrong. But, boy, you'd be sitting there going, what dummies were we to do that? Because, remember, LaCroix he actually played pretty well with Texas where he ended up that in 16. But 17, he was terrible. So that may be one of those you go, thank God that one didn't go through.
All right, just Paul, quickly on the elimination game thing. Is there a mental hang-up, or what do you think?
You know, I don't know. I think I don't buy that. I really don't. I think if you get to Game 5 and Kluber didn't pitch well, I mean, okay. So what are you going to do? I mean, that's, you know, Game 5 last year, you know, Game 7 in 2016 in the World Series. You know, you've got an exhausted pitching staff. I mean, Kluber again, but I don't know. I think if you get there, it's a flip of the coin. I don't think there's like any deep dark secret that the Indians can't win a Game 7 or a Game 5. I just think that's baseball.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. Next question. Yes, sir. You got to catch this though. Nice try.
Oh, that's the guy.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
He does not go.
Oh, God.
It's pandemonium, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead, sir. The question for Paul is the biggest achievement in spring training and the biggest disappointment.
Biggest achievement, biggest disappointment.
Was it when you finished that platter of chicken wings? Was that it?
It's me not getting locked in the ballpark.
That was most.
And Goodyear ball. No, I'd say the biggest achievement was, you know, kind of Yonder Alonso. First pitch he saw, he hit for a home run in the Cactus League game. Biggest disappointment, boy, I don't know. I mean, probably Ryan Merritt getting hurt, but I think that might have been an injury of convenience. You know, we didn't get to see him a lot. He was out of options, so he started the year on the DL, and so I think you know, maybe that covers it.
Joe?
I'd say Trevor Bauer leading the Cactus League and leading all baseball in strikeouts. It really seems to have turned a corner. And as far as disappointment, I'd say Gio Urshela getting hurt late in camp because he had hit his way onto the club. That was the thing for me was you knew he was there defensively and everything else, but he had made a statement at the plate hitting his way onto the team, and he was going to be there.
I was actually very curious to see how Kluber would throw, which was excellent. There's an old saying somebody said to me, I love it, it's called accurate but not true. Remember last year they said, well, Kluber lost his arm slot in the playoffs. In other words, his motion was different. Well, that was accurate. But the truth was his back was hurting him, and nobody wanted to say it. You know, so was wondering why. In fact, Paul, I asked a couple of guys down there this spring just to make sure what I had heard before, and oh yeah, his back was bothering him, but he, Curley's over it and better now because if your two-time Cy Young Award winner comes into February and in March and his back's bothering him, suddenly we're lowering those numbers real fast on the estimates.
On predictions, you mentioned Yonder Alonso. I have on my prediction list he's going to have 67 home runs this year. And whatever a slugging percentage is, his is going to be really high.
He's gonna hit him over Yonder?
Yes, over Yonder, yes.
Ouch.
All right, we have more questions now. Let's try this side of the room. Anybody got anything? Okay, yes, this gentleman. Caught it. That we should have or that we will? The question is, should we have added another relief arm to take over for Brian Shaw, who ate up so many innings so capably, even though everybody hated him? I don't know why.
I think they should have, yeah. But that's an expensive item right there. I mean, Shaw signed for what, 3 years, $27 million, and everybody likes Shaw. They all signed the same kind of contract. So that's a $9 million, $10 million, a year pitcher, and I just didn't see them doing that with, they're paying Miller $9 million a year, Cody Allen's $10 million a year, over $10 million, so they got $29, $30 million wrapped up in the last two guys. So I think they felt they could, they could find somebody on the open, a free agent. They brought a bunch of guys in. So far it hasn't worked. So, they're looking at, McAllister, Otero.
What about Goody?
Tyler Olson. They're trying to find somebody out of that mix, and if they don't, I think Francona's just going to mix and match, in the seventh and eighth inning until he can get to, Miller and Cody Allen.
Doug, are you worried about the bullpen?
Well, the last couple of years, the Indians, I think, have helped change baseball with how good they've been in their bullpen. And you see other teams do that now, that it's not just about having a closer. It's about having guys that you can, if you get to the 6th inning of a game, or especially the 7th inning, you feel really good about where you are. And I feel like Cleveland in some way has been spoiled by that, by how good they have been. So it's interesting to me, the idea of if you're a half step short of that, right? If you still feel really good about the 8th and 9th, with Miller and Allen, but maybe you're not quite as deep. Other teams are that deep now. So I think we're used to that. And if that's not there, I think that will be noticeable. But who uses a bullpen better than Terry Francona, right? And I think the right manager can mix and match in a way that even if the parts aren't quite as good, I feel like if somebody can figure it out, it might be Terry Francona.
Sometimes these relievers come out of nowhere, too, because as a relief pitcher, they always say kind of need like 1.5 good pitches. You know, you need your one good fastball or slider, and the other one that's not bad. In fact, that's part of the problem with Zach McAllister. He's even trying to find that half a good second pitch. I once figured out, I wrote 4 different stories over spring training about 4 different pitches that Zach McAllister was trying to make this, you know, was a slider, was a split finger, was a changeup, to accompany that second pitch. But if you think about it, I mean, who knew at the start of, say, 2012, where Cody Allen came up for the last 6 weeks, Cody Allen's name, because I think he was like in Class A at that time. The Indians usually slow bringing guys up, but they'll fast track a reliever if somebody gets hot, and hope there is. So there could be somebody whose name doesn't particularly come to mind right now that could be here in July and help them. So there, how's that? That's hopeful.
Well, and there's enough guys who could fit into the 5th starter spot, right? That, I mean, isn't there somebody? What's going to happen when Danny Salazar comes back? Yeah. I mean, maybe couldn't they make, if they have a little bit of a surplus of options in the starting rotation, you turn somebody into your 7th inning guy?
Well, I know they like Salazar. You know, that's his name keeps coming up. In a perfect world, you know, I sound like John Hart saying in a perfect world, but I think they want Salazar to be a starter. They want him to. They love his arm, and they don't think he can, you know, stand the grind of pitching, you know, 2 or 3 days in a row out of the bullpen. So I think, but I don't know, necessity. Maybe they do make that change, and maybe he, you know, you're not going to put Tomlin in a bullpen. I don't think you're going to put Clevenger's pitched in the bullpen, but I don't think you want to mess with him. So. You know, I would think, you know, that, you know, Salazar's an option. But first he's got to get healthy, and he's going to be gone for at least a month or so.
I love these reports. He's sitting there. Well, he's throwing off a flat ground as the sun rises in Goodyear over the mountains, and the birds are quiet. You know, it's like they have all these restrictions and all these things. I don't mean to be sarcastic, but it's like, until this guy actually pitches in something resembling a game. Now, it sounds kind of hard, but my first manager that I covered, back when Paul was in elementary school, 1979 was the Baltimore Orioles. I was the beat guy home and away, and Earl Weaver was it. And, you know, Weaver, by the way, invented stats of, like, what a batting average of a certain hitter against a certain pitcher, and likewise. I mean, he was like the grandfather of analytics, or the basic stuff we have now. But you would ask him, like a guy like Salazar's on a disabled list, he goes, "Don't ask me, he's dead to me." I remember the first time I said, "Earl, dead to you?" He goes, "Look, if I can't pitch him or I can't play him, he's dead to me. When he's alive again, we'll talk about him." And, you know, it's kind of cold, but the truth is, I mean, you could talk about all the other stuff, but, you know, Danny throwing off flat ground in the Grand Canyon or whatever, I don't mean to be sarcastic, but it's like, until this guy shows he has some durability, you can't really talk about him.
Folks, if you'll get your little raffle tickets ready, after the next question, I'm going to call these numbers. I just want to make sure you have them if you have to dig them out of your pocket. And we're going to start going through those, give away some tickets and some books and that type of stuff. So after the next question, we'll do that. And the next question, I'm going to try this side of the room. I'm going to catch you next. Anybody way down over here? Do you guys have a question? All right, we need to do a relay. Terry, can you do a relay here? Thank you. There's one. Now turn around and throw it to the gentleman with his hand up. Close enough. Question was about Chief Wahoo. No comment. Next question. No. Thoughts about this? Let's talk about it in this way. The team has decided it's phasing out Chief Wahoo. This is the last year on the uniforms. It still can be sold on merchandise. Yeah. Clearly, it's been de-emphasized for years. Paul, you talked with the Indians' boss, Paul Dolan, about this. Terry did. Terry talked to Paul Dolan about it. Will this affect the team in some way, the kind of polar opposites we have among the fandom?
No.
Okay.
I mean, people would like to wear their stuff. What I appreciate what Paul Dolan did, and by the way, I found that my first column was in 1998 about wanting to hire 4 artists or 5 from different Indian tribes, the Lakota, Shoshone, whatever, have them submit drawings, have a contest, sort of do the old Bill Veeck kind of thing, let's have some fun with this, and kind of solve a problem, maybe in the meantime. But Paul Dolan, he was getting tremendous pressure on all this. They could say they weren't going to pull the All-Star game. Okay, fine, he could say that. It's a story. But clearly they weren't happy with the Indians. I mean, I was surprised, and he's been very forthcoming. He had a fight to keep the historical pictures up. I mean, they wanted to take down all these pictures of Chief Wahoo and the players. This is like when the communists took over in Russia and wanted to get rid of pictures of the old czars. I mean, it was amazing. And so he goes, we got that, and he goes, we're not going to have the Chief Wahoo police and all of these things. That's my feeling is I've been against it for almost 20 years, but this is not like the cause celeb of my life here. I'm not going to live and die and stay up at night worried about Chief Wahoo. But I thought Paul, given what he had to deal with from Major League Baseball and everything else, probably came out of it. I'm really curious to see, because in 2019 they're going to put the All-Star logo on the sleeves, but 2020 they can't put the Block C on there. They got to do something.
Paul Hoynes, I want to get, because Terry just said he's been against it. Paul Hoynes wrote a column that said he likes Wahoo.
I grew up with Chief Wahoo, and I love it. I still like it, and I didn't see anything. I understand why some people would. Well, Native Americans some Native Americans would take it as a racist and an insulting image. To me, it was just baseball. This is what I grew up with, what my dad grew up with. I didn't associate it with a Native American race. I just associated with going to the ballpark. And I think Manfred, the current commissioner, has no business interfering with a major league team on their logos. When I talked to Selig, Bud Selig, who was the commissioner for 15, 20, 30 years, he always said the logo was a local decision. Manfred gets in there and changes the whole thing, and comes in. They offer them, they give them the All-Star game. The Indians get the All-Star game out of nowhere. It just kind of appears. There's 15 other teams the Indians have had 6 or 7 All-Star games. There's teams waiting now that haven't had an All-Star game. So how did that happen? And all of a sudden now, the next year Chief Wahoo's gone. So there was that's a sweetheart deal. That's something's going on there, and stunk.
Go ahead.
Will you tell the truth?
I have to tell you, I feel like in my role hosting A Sound of Ideas, I need to get a counterpoint. Can I go get Mark Namick from the newsroom? Yeah. Because he totally feels opposite of you and has written about it, and many people have, that while it's baseball to you, it just is racist. And they don't want that logo, and there are many reasons that are enumerated for it. And I only say that because there clearly are differences of opinions on that. Do you think the Indians did the best they could given the circumstance? And
yeah,
do you think
definitely.
that we'll suffer in any way by not having that character?
No, I think they did the best they could. I do, and I don't think the team is going to suffer. I don't think Francisco Lindor is going to go into a slump because he's not going to have Chief Wahoo on his cap.
Paul, what kind of launch angle did Chief Wahoo have? I always like that. Or release points and all these.
Folks, I'm going to draw a number here. So if you have your ticket, this is for 2 tickets to the Detroit Tigers Cleveland Indians game, April 10th. It'll be sunny and warm by then, I'm told. It's a 6:10 p.m. game, so it'll only be sunny for about an hour. This number is 193335. 193335. Call it out if you got it. You're the winner. Oh, yes, ma'am. Come on up. Now, here's somebody who's an Indians fan. No, we want the star of the show. Congratulations.
Thank you. Woo-hoo!
We may not make people happy with our analysis, but we do with the free tickets. Good job. All right, we have a next question. I did promise it to this gentleman in the back, but only if you can catch the ball. Are you ready?
Nice throw.
Thank you. All right, give the ball back then. Okay, so do we need a 5-man rotation? A lot of teams are going to 4-man rotations. Should that be an Indians' goal as well, instead of having a 5-man? And secondly, in the rotation, you've got Kluber first, and then you've got Carrasco second. Our question asker wants to know maybe we should stick Bauer in between because of different pitching styles or approaches. Sir, you're finished. Okay? Joe Noga?
Well, I don't think going to a 4-man rotation would be ideal for the Indians now, just because they've got 7 guys who could start games for them, you know, and if you get Salazar and Merritt back anytime soon. As far as changing the order in the rotation, I kind of tend to disagree with you there. I think Kluber and Bauer are actually a little more similar. Just look at the number of curveballs that Bauer has been throwing, and the curveball is Kluber's best pitch. That and the comeback fastball. I think you're going to see Bauer throw a lot more curveballs this year, and he's working on that new slider. I think the two of them are a little more similar there. I agree with the order of the rotation right now.
And let me ask Doug Lesmerises, because I think you guys addressed this in your Bud versus Doug, talking about the season. Maybe I'm wrong, but we'll ask it anyway. Trevor Bauer, is this a launch year for him? Are we going to see a Cy Young candidate, Trevor Bauer, this year?
Yeah, well, he's at that age where a lot of guys make the leap, right? And in some ways, he's sort of established. Like, he's a young guy, but he's really been doing this for several years now. So last year, he won more games, but a lot of his other numbers were very similar. And I know he had sort of 2 different halves. I think that's possible. I don't know that I would assume it. He seems very confident about it, but on the other hand, I think it's possible he maybe is what he is, which is a good pitcher, but I don't know that I'm sure that Trevor Bauer has Corey Kluber type topside in him, but I think some people probably do think that. I'm not so sure about that, but and then the thing too, I almost wonder if some teams are going to like a 6-man rotation, aren't they? Could the Indians, rather than a 4, with as many starters as they have, would you almost consider a 6-man rotation for the Indians? But on the other hand, would you want to take starts away from Corey Kluber?
Well, just really quick, you would want to take starts away from Corey Kluber if it means he's going to have a healthy back in the American League Division Series. Maybe lighten that workload a little bit, and a 6-man rotation would do that. He missed a month last year and still finished with 230-plus strikeouts. So you know what you're going to get with him.
It was interesting. I asked Yonder Alonso just about facing the Indians pitchers, and the 3 that were mentioned, you know, Carrasco, Bauer, and Kluber. And he hits righties very well. That's been Alonso's history. Lefties, I think he hit 181 against them last year. He goes, I look at those guys and go, this is going to be 3 long, grinding games when you would see them wind up. So I don't think he was real worried about whether their motions are the same or whatnot. Just if they're throwing the ball really well, it's going to be hard. And that's the nice thing for the Indians. We're talking about starting rotations. I would say, 2/3, Paul, or more teams are dying for starting pitching.
Yeah, and the thing, like Doug was saying, more teams are thinking about going to a 6-man rotation. You know, the Angels have a 6-man rotation now with Ohtani, trying to fit him in there. You know, the Japanese kid that the Indians made a star in Anaheim a couple days ago. And so, you know, and I think the Cubs went to a 6-man rotation in the second half last year. The Indians have you know, I've asked them about that, and they have really kind of, they don't want to do that. I think they want to keep Kluber on a regular, you know, as every 5 days, every 4 days pitching, and they don't want to interrupt that. So I think they would, if they had an injury, they might go to a 6-man rotation. But I don't think they're going to go back to a 4-man rotation. I don't see that happening.
You folks probably already know this, but I was on the coaching staff of the 2010 Rocky River Little League champion team. And that year, we pitched Jared Edwards every game. And I'm wondering, you know, why not just throw Kluber out there every game?
Yeah.
You got to go with your horse.
They tried that.
Yeah.
They tried that, says Paul. We saw the result.
One of those guys.
Let me call another number. This is also for tickets to the very warm Detroit Tigers game, April 10th. This one, I'm sorry, ma'am, also has a parking pass. Maybe you can argue with the person about that. I think you should trade if you win this. She's got the hat to prove it. Look at all the pins on there. The number is 193367. 193367. Going once. Yes. You are the winner, sir.
All right.
There you go. Congratulations. And he's been making eyes at me for the last 5 minutes because he wants to ask the next question. So, sir, this should be an easy catch. Got it.
All right.
Mike, we were talking about logos, but I want to get back to that issue. The Indians over the years have been referred to by many nicknames, the Tribe, the Wahoos, the Featherheads, etc. Since the logo is gone, going, is the nickname next?
Question is, if Wahoo is going, will the name Indians go next, and all the other nicknames that go with it, the Tribe, the Featherheads, etc.? Do we think that the name is next, Paul? I mean, Terry?
Paul's answer to that was to hand me the mic. It should not be. Remember, and I'm the guy that's against the regular chief law. Yeah, that's what he said. And here's why. And in fact, one of the things that struck me about Chief Wahoo is 1998, actually, I was on the Pine Ridge Reservation down in South Dakota, and I kind of asked myself, would I wear a Chief Wahoo hat down here? The answer was no. It really was. Now, also, well, the reservation I've been on a fair amount, I would say about 6 or 7 times, is the Wind River Reservation up in Wyoming. A friend of my wife and I, Sister Monica, she's been a missionary there for a long time, and they refer to themselves. I mean, you'll be talking to a guy there, and he goes, "Oh yeah, me and the boy, we were hunting up in Indian country, up in the hills, and got us an elk." I mean, I remember that line exactly. Or Indian this. In fact, the newspaper that was on the reservation was called Indian Country Today, like USA Today. It is not a pejorative term. I mean, look, there's always a small amount of people that are insulted by the fact that I'm bald and I'm up here. But you could always find somebody for something. But you know, it isn't, and it shouldn't be like that. And Paul said that he doesn't think they're going to change it. But, you know, hey, stuff's happened in the last 20 years that I never would have guessed. So, but they shouldn't.
Joe, are you insulted that Terry is bald and he's up there?
No,
Okay.
I think it's great.
Great. I just want to make sure you weren't insulted.
It opens up so many opportunities for the rest of us. I think I thought back in 2016, if they had finished off the Cubs in the World Series, I think the next year would have been the perfect opportunity to break and just rebrand the team the Spiders and go from there. I thought that would have been the perfect opportunity.
We got one vote for the Spiders.
But the Spiders were so bad, they had the 1 year, they lose like 140 games. They didn't even play. They were so bad, they couldn't play at home. They played the half of their season on the road, the second half of the season on the road.
Well,
the Spiders, that's a cursed name. You can't have that.
Look at how red he's getting. My goodness.
Well, under my scenario, they would have just won the World Series. So
It's not my line, but Wes Levine said that team was the first one with a website.
Oh.
You know.
That's bad.
You're on with Wes, you know.
Yeah.
Given the history of this team, we should just call them the Cleveland Clinics, right? Speaking of which, I do have some news to offer you guys today. I'm a reporter as well. I checked with the Indians team doctors. Edwin Encarnacion will make a full recovery. You guys didn't hear? He needs 4 more days of oxygen to get over that inside the park home run. And then he's going to be fine. 4 more days. All right, let's do one more drawing, then we're going to ask a question of you, sir, in the vintage shirt. But let's get tickets for the Minnesota Twins Monday, August 6th, 7:10 p.m. It's going to be warm. I'm guaranteeing you. It's 2 tickets for the Twins game August 6th, 193-420. The 420. Some of you know what that means. Yeah, 120.
Trevor Bauer does.
Yeah, Trevor Bauer knows what that means. 193-420. 193-420. Yes, here you go, sir. Congratulations.
Mike, it's funny that you mentioned that number and Trevor Bauer's familiarity with him. We all saw the story that came out with his donation and his numerology, and I'm not going to bring it up and mention it. But one of the great joys of my week last week was on the phone with Paul Hoynes in Seattle, trying to explain to Paul what 420 meant. That conversation took place last week.
I guess now we have to explain it. So it's like the police code for like marijuana. So people, when they say 420, means they're going to smoke weed. So you guys have been educated today. All right? What's that? I don't know.
Nope.
All right, sir, in the vintage Indians jersey right there. Okay, we'll see if I still have an arm. Pretty nice catch. I know, me too.
Workman's comp.
How valuable are batting and pitching coaches in the modern day of baseball? Paul?
Well, I think they're very valuable. I really do. Those are the guys that break down the video. You know, the Indians have, well, most teams, you know, always had like 2 pitching coaches. The pitching coach for the rotation, the bullpen coach for the relievers. Now the Indians have added, well, every team has added basically 2 hitting coaches, you know, because you've got 12 or 13 hitters. It's hard to work with, you know, one guy to work with that many guys. And usually one of the hitting coaches breaks down all the pictures, all the video, all the scouting reports, and prepares that for each hitter. And, you know, so, you know, I think it really is, you know, it's important, especially, of course, you know, there's good players and there's good, you know, hitting and pitching instructors as well. If you have a good one, I think it's invaluable. I really do. And they get to know the players. They know the quirks. I mean, a guy like Mickey Callaway, you know, look what he did with his staff. So I don't think you can downplay the importance of that.
Joe, is it going to hurt us to not have Mickey Callaway?
Yeah, a lot of the Indians pitchers will tell you, like, he did a lot of the breakdowns and he was very specific, the way that he set things up heading into a series, and the work was very detailed. I don't know if that's going to be the case with Carl Willis. Carl Willis seems to have a little more of a hands-off approach. But in terms of the hitting coaches, you've got Victor Rodriguez replaced Matt Cattaro as the assistant hitting coach this year, and he comes over from Boston. And Boston, their offense was, you know, top 2 or 3 the last couple of seasons with Victor Rodriguez as an assistant hitting coach there. So I don't think you're going to lose too much on the hitting side, although the first 6 games haven't sort of bared out that point yet.
The main thing I also think we always look, because sometimes we want to reduce all this to a fantasy league and the numbers, it's interpersonal relationships. And those of us who've ever raised kids or whatever, I mean, doesn't it drive you nuts? Sometimes you've been telling your kid something for 10 years and he goes, well, you know, my English teacher talked to me afterwards and said I really should get my homework in on time. I think I'm going to do it. And so, yeah, the moms are laughing there because, but it is, so sometimes the interpersonal stuff in talking to somebody, or when a person, like when you're really in a bad slump and you feel like you can't even hit the ball if they handed it to you and told you to throw it up and swing, video isn't the answer always for that. You need that relationship. And I also think, too, in a league where about 30% of the players are Latino, having bilingual coaches is critical. I'll tell you this, I wouldn't want to, you know, for example, I know it took 2 years of Spanish at Benedictine, I remember 4 or 5 words, and it's not their fault, it's mine, but say I were working in a situation where I had to deal in my second language all the time, I would welcome somebody there. So I think that's another part that gets lost. That's why Sandy Alomar is important, Rodriguez is important, to have that.
I remember one word of Spanish, cerveza. Dos cerveza.
All right. Here I thought you were going to say, me gusta la biblioteca. No, you don't like the library, obviously. We're going to have another drawing here. This is going to be for a choice of Terry Pluto books. Again, there are 743 books. You can pick from one of the 5 titles here. The Curse of Rocky Colavito, a loving look at a 30-year slump. Dealing, the updated edition, the Cleveland Indians' new ball game. The Comeback, LeBron and the Cavs in Cleveland. Terry Pluto has nothing to do with baseball, but we're going to raffle it off today because it's a terrific book. I read that one, and all of them, of course. And Glory Days in Tribe Town, the Cleveland Indians and Jacobs Field, 94 to 97. And Joe Tate. It's been a real ball with Terry Pluto and Joe Tate. So that's what you can choose from. The number is 193428. 193428. Way over here. Come on up, sir. Let's hear it for him. In the meanwhile, let's have another question from this side of the room. Yes, sir. Ready?
All
nice.
right. Yeah, he's supposed to be activated today.
My question was, sorry guys, I was trying to give a book away.
Oh.
He picked the Colavito book, by the way. Question was, what about Michael Brantley? So what's his status?
He should be activated today, I think. Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, but that, yeah, he's in Cleveland, came to Cleveland a couple days ago, played last 2 minor league games in Goodyear, Monday and Tuesday. He's in Cleveland, and he's supposed to be activated today.
All right, so last question on that, on Michael Brantley, is do you agree with them picking up his option, given the fact that he has this injury history?
You know, I think, yes, I do. I thought it was a good move. I thought it was, you know, just the way he, you know, I know he only played 90 games last year, but you know, they were all, most of them in the first half. He hit well. He went to the All-Star game. I thought it was, you know, $12 million. Yes, you know, it's kind of obviously a big chunk of money. But I think if they had gone out and tried to find a comparable outfielder, I think it would have cost them more.
Anyone else with thoughts on Michael Brantley? Doug?
I'm mostly just asking questions because I don't have nearly as many answers as these guys. The outfield in general, I'm just fascinated by the idea of, is it good enough? Or are we expecting that another Jay Bruce is going to arrive at the trade deadline for this team? If Brantley is healthy and himself, is this outfield good enough, Paul, in your mind, or are you anticipating that they're gonna have to make a move? Because there's several options out there. I feel like a guy like Nelson Cruz maybe, or guys are out there that could be traded for in a couple months.
So, what's the thought there?
Yeah, I mean. It all depends. I mean, they went to the World Series in 2016, basically platooning in every outfield position. You know, they had like 6 guys. I don't know, there was like 20 outfielders. You know, so I mean, you know, I think Francona can make it work. I think getting Brantley back is important. It gives you like one stable position. If he's healthy and if he, let's say he plays 120 games. You know, if he could do that, I mean, that's a guy you don't have to platoon with. You can hit either 3rd or 5th. You know, you don't have to mess around with him. He's going to play basically every day. He's not going to play that right now. They're going to ease him into the lineup, and then you can mess around with center field and right field. You know, you can do Zimmer against righties and Chisenhall and Geyer against right. You know, platoon them. But I think I don't think that precludes him from going out and getting another outfielder at the deadline. You know, you saw what Jay Bruce did for him last year. He gave them another, you know, with Brantley out then, he was that guy. He was a stable guy. You hit him right behind Encarnacion, and, you know, you just left him there. He played every day.
Do you think we could trade some minor leaguers for, like, Mike Trout? No?
No.
Okay. I'm sorry, this isn't Cleveland Talk Radio. My bad. My prediction on Michael Brantley is that he will play 145 games and bat 342. If you guys want to write that down, that's what we've got. Everybody seems happy with me today. I love that. I'll draw for another book, and then I did draw, and I'm going to read it, and then we're going to have another question. We're about 8:50. We've got about 10 more minutes or so. 193407. 193407. Josie is going to get a book, and she's sending her grandson, is it? Son? Grandson? He's running. I'm going to tell you, I'll guess which book it's going to be. I'll think of it, and then I'll tell you what it is. Look at, you got that, you got that, you got that. Which one do you want? I knew he'd pick the LeBron book. Got it. He'd look good in the lineup, wouldn't he? Okay. Whoa. Error. I'll go with this one. Okay. I saw this hand. Wait, way down. Yeah, man, no, this, yes, ma'am, with the white sleeve, stand up. Yes, you. Terry, we need to relay. You ready?
Double play.
Perfect. We turn 2. So the rules, the question was, what about the rules to, quote, shorten the game? Like, isn't there one where it's like if you're up by 10 after 5 innings or something, you call the game?
Well, I can tell you.
I'm familiar with that one.
If your starting pitcher throws 49 pitches in the first inning, the game's going to be super long anyway. So it
The
really
best
doesn't
way to
matter.
shorten the game is to play when it's 35 degrees outside.
All fastballs.
Everybody swings first pitch.
But what about that? The rules and the pitch clock and all those types of things. Baseball is a game that kind of unfolds. It's one of the reasons we like it. It doesn't have a clock. But does it need to go faster?
I think it does need to go faster. I mean, I think the pitch clock is eventually, it's in the minors now. It's in the Arizona Fall League. I would bet it's going to be in here next year. I mean, Manfred could have, really imposed it this year. But the relationship between the union and the owners isn't that great. I don't think he wanted to really kind of, stir things up again. But I think eventually that will happen. I think the rule where the hitter has to keep 1 foot in the batter's box. Nobody really listens to it. If you watch them, they're still walking around or stepping out of the box. But I think that's good. And there is a rule, there in the rule book right now that you can't go, a pitcher can't go like 20 seconds, 21 seconds without throwing a pitch. And that's, if the bases are empty. And nobody does that. I mean, it's like everybody's Rafael Betancourt and taking a minute between pitches on the mound. So, but I think there are ways to speed the game up. I think it has to be sped up. I don't think you don't have to play a game in an hour and 30 minutes. I think when you go to the ballpark, you want to be there for fans expect to be there between 2 and 3 hours. Just kind of sit in the sun. Yeah, but I mean, when you're sitting there for a 9-inning game and it's 4 hours, and they're making 7 pitching changes, each team has used 7 or 8 pitchers. I think there's something wrong with the game then.
And I have to admit, Mike, when you go out there, it's kind of like maybe in your league, the Rocky River little team. Well, it's like how many times you need to go out there as the catcher? Go 1's a fastball, 2's a curve, 3's a slider. I mean, really?
Right. By the way,
I'm not bitter or any. By the way, the guy who said they don't care about baseball and how long it takes never had to cover baseball for a living.
That's right.
And right on deadline. I can tell you that.
They say there's no cheering in the press box, but they cheer for fast games. They want it to be done quickly. By the way, Major League Baseball, this just in, is very serious about speeding up the games. They hired a czar for it. Mike Hargrove is going to be in charge of speeding up the baseball games. So we know we'll get something done. I'm going to call 3 numbers. Whoever gets here first has their choice of books. We're going to go with 3 Terry Pluto books. So pay attention to this. 193409, 193419, and 193408. Those are 3 numbers in a row. When you come on up, you can pick a book. I want it to be a free-for-all. Got it? Okay, you pick dealing. Ooh, a nice cut move. Which one would you like? And I'll take your ticket. Sir, you get All About Joe Tate.
Oh, okay.
Wham with the right hand. All right. I just put some of those tickets back into the basket, so if I call your number again, I apologize. This is not very well run. by me. Yes, yes, ma'am, right there. Yes, right there, yes. Here you go, ready? Oh, it was a bad throw. It was a bad throw.
It was a bad throw.
It was a horrible throw. So it seems like a given. I don't know about that, but it seems like a given. I hope not. I'm praying that they're going to lose Miller and Allen at the end of this year. So basically, it's a do or die year.
Well, Joe and me wrote a story about this. Joe took one side, I took the other side. I think this is their senior year. This is the year where, okay, let's win, get it over with, win the World Series. This is probably your last chance or the window closes because, like you said, they're going to lose the back end of their bullpen with Miller and Allen. Those guys, I think, if they're not as good as gone, I think they're just about there. I just don't see them keeping those guys. There's Zach McAllister, Brantley, Chisenhall. So they're losing a bunch of free agents and Josh Tomlin. So I think this is an important year. This is a year where you've got to make a move.
Well, and I said in my counterpoint, I said, there's the old saying with the traditionally strong basketball programs in college, tradition never graduates. And that's what Terry Francona has sort of instilled, that winning tradition since he arrived in 2013. And I think the program just keeps feeding itself with the way that the minor leagues are stocked right now. Sure, the back end of the bullpen is going to be a huge question mark at the end of this year and next year. But look at the talent that's waiting on the doorstep. If you've got Francisco Mejia, who's a top 15 prospect in all of baseball, and he can't crack the lineup right now because you're holding him back. You've got Greg Allen. You've got guys who are going to be making a difference on this team in the future, just waiting in the wings, waiting for those spots to open up. 7 free agents move on at the end of this year, and more than likely they will. Those guys are going to get their shot and get their chance to prove themselves.
But, Joe, can any of them pitch in late relief?
That would be the big question.
Well, 2 comments. Number one was, of course, at some college basketball programs, nobody ever graduates, since you said that. Just kind of struck me as that. The other being, John Hart used to say, kind of closers fall out of trees, and that doesn't mean they're just everywhere, but you don't know where they're going to get them. Because if you were to look at Andrew Miller's career, he was a very high draft choice as a starter, high first-round pick, bounced all over the place through a couple teams to finally the Red Sox put him in the bullpen, and he took off. Cody Allen was a 23rd round draft pick, a starting pitcher at High Point College. In fact, the Indians had drafted him the year before in the 15th round. He didn't sign. Then they drafted him again, I think it was the 23rd round. They figured, I better sign now or this is getting worse. He had 1 more year to go. They threw him in the bullpen. And when you're a 23rd round pick, nobody really thinks you're going to do a whole lot. And a year and a half later, he's in the big leagues. And so that often is the case where you don't know. But in terms of, the math is on Paul's side in terms of when you lose so many of the guys. And then it comes down to your farm system. And Joe is right on that end, too. Boy, I sound like very political, but that's because, in fact, I wrote a whole column out of spring training with Carter Hawkins, which is their farm director, about prospects. And the first line he goes, the longer I'm in this, the less I realize I know in terms of about projecting prospects and who's going to do what. He talked about Cody Allen, for example. Josh Tomlin was another guy. He was drafted twice, and I think he was, 20-some round. And in fact, Josh Tomlin never opened the season in the starting rotation until he made the Indians when Manny Atka was here. Every year in the minors, he would open. They would just look at him. Doesn't throw hard enough. They put him in the bullpen. Then by June, he'd be in the rotation. That is the thing that you get more in baseball than anywhere else is they just throw all these guys out there. It's kind of survival of the fittest in these little towns where you don't see them. Of course, great blessing is we can go see them in different places, and they sort of sort themselves out, and suddenly they become prospects. So that's the one thing on closers you don't know. But also sometimes it seems like you can't find a closer anywhere. You remember they run through all those guys a few years ago.
But I do think I agree more with Paul that I think there is a window here that you have to take advantage of, and which is why I think you have to respect so much what the Indians have done when they made the Miller trade, when they had the Encarnacion signing, when they got Jay Bruce last year. They're going for it, and the future is not promised. And I think you have to be willing to fall off a cliff to go for it now. And you can't be worried about, well, what's our team going to look like in 2022 if we trade some of these prospects? This is it. And I think, for instance, Francisco Mejia has to help you win the World Series this year, either by getting called up and playing or by getting a player in a trade that gets you over the top. And so you can't be worried about the future because what's their payroll right now?
It's like 130, 135 million.
If these players were on an open, free market, what they're eventually going to be paid, right? So you say this is a team that can't compete with the Yankees for payroll, right? This is a $200 million team. They're just not making that money, but that's what their talent is. If you put Lindor on the open market, if he could be a free agent right now, if Jose Ramirez, right? They have some great players signed for below market deals. This is it. So I think they have done that, and I respect the Indians for going for it the past couple of years, but I think you have to go for it this year more than ever.
And this is interesting. It's just they're at an interesting point of their franchise history. They've won for 5 straight years, and if you watch and look at any other team, Cincinnati, any other small market team, middle market team, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Kansas City. Kansas City lost for like 30 straight years. They go to the World Series in 2014. They win it in 2015. Then they're back down. Pittsburgh has had lost for 20, 30 straight years. They go to the postseason 3 straight years. Then they drop down. And the reason is because when you bottom out, when you tank, you collect high draft picks. And that all builds up, and you eventually, if you're picking the right guys, you get better. But when a small to mid-market team gets better, when they improve, they start drafting at the bottom of they're the 29th and 30th teams picking. So, and they don't have the capital to go out and spend on free agents like the Yankees and the big market teams, the Yankees, Boston, Los Angeles. So eventually you can't stay up there as a small market team. But the Indians have done it for 5 years, and they're trying to extend that. And they're trying, and I just don't know, where do they go from here? What's the 6th, 7th, and 8th year look like?
That extended answer felt like the last Indians game. 13 innings, and we all lose, I think. No, it was actually we won this one. We won this one. Let me say this. You mentioned Manny Acta. I mean, how many of us really miss Manny Acta? I mean, it would be so. And I had a prediction. Someone mentioned Mike Tomlin. He will win the Cy Young Award this year. Bank it. Just write these down for next year. I'll share them with you. I've got a couple of quick other things to do. It is 9 o'clock. If you've got to get up and go to work, I apologize. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, the sunshine. Yeah. We're going to go a couple of more minutes, have a couple of more questions, give away 2 more things here. This is for a Cleveland Indians celebration banner. It's one of those rally together banners. 193356 is the number. 193356. 3356. Anybody? Yes, sir. Come on up and get it. In the meanwhile, who has a question? And I want to know on this side of the room first because we haven't heard much from you. I want to make sure you're being taken care of. You're good. Next question. I had somebody way down there that had one up for a while, and then we'll get to you, sir. Terry, I need a relay. There you are, sir. Congratulations. Oh, did you say Manny Machado? Is that a drink at Starbucks? What is that? No, I'm not real familiar with. Who is he talking about, and what is?
Manny Machado is the third baseman for the Orioles. I think he's playing shortstop this year. He's a free agent at the end of the year. A good candidate for a rental player. The Indians looked at him. They talked to him over the winter. They talked to the Orioles over the winter. They wanted 2 big league starters for him, and that for a guy that you're going to rent for a year. I don't see that happening. Maybe the price comes down. at the deadlines on July 31st, August 31st, but I would tend to think that's not going to happen.
Okay, let's have one last drawn number. This is for 2 tickets to the Minnesota Twins game August 6th at 7:10 p.m. 2 tickets and a parking pass. All right, I know, it's exciting. And the winner is 193346. 193346. Anybody? Yes? Got it. All right, yes, sir. And while that's happening, we're getting close to the end here, but let's have, we want to make sure we answer your questions. And these guys have got to get to work. So let's get one quickly. I promised this gentleman right here, but he has to catch a ball first. You ready? Okay.
All
perfect.
Right.
It seems like the Indians rely an awful lot on the long ball to score runs. I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, so far they have in the first 6 games they have. They don't score unless they hit a home run. But I think, with Lindor and Ramirez at the top of the lineup, I think they've started. They haven't started real well. But I think once they get, once they start swinging the bat, they're kind of action players. They both can run. They can hit home runs, obviously, but I don't think that's their game. It's their game is to get on base and have Encarnacion and Alonso drive them in, and we just haven't seen that. So I don't think they're going to be a big home run hitting team. I mean, they're not going to. That's not going to be their lifeblood.
And you saw an example in Los Angeles. Bradley Zimmer legs out an infield hit. Steals second, steals third, and comes home on a wild pitch. I mean, they can manufacture runs in a variety of ways with the speed that they've got with Bradley Zimmer, and you put Rajai Davis in there. Jose Ramirez takes extra bases like he's owed them. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways this offense can score.
Are we counting heavily on the inside the park home run this year?
For entertainment value, yes.
Not for strategy. All right, look, I have 1 ball left. It's perfect because we have 1 more question. This gentleman back here, all right, see if I got it. You ready? Perfect.
Nice throw.
Thank you. Did you guys, I'm sorry, I didn't hear, I heard Edwin Encarnacion and then a bunch of other stuff.
He asked about Edwin Encarnacion and Tyler Naquin and what we thought.
And Naquin, okay, that's the one I missed. So your thoughts on Encarnacion and Naquin?
Well, I think Naquin's probably packing his bags right now. If Brantley's coming back, Brantley's getting activated, I think he might be headed back to Columbus. Encarnacion is encouraging to see him start the way he has. He's already hit 3 home runs, had the inside the park home run. I think he looked a little more engaged in spring training, but I don't think he's a spring training guy. I don't think he just kind of, okay, it's a necessary evil. Let's get it done. But I think when the weather warms up, he warms up. So I think I think it's just to see him swinging the bat right now. I think the Indians are really happy.
Well, and they got a full season out of him last year, health-wise, out of Encarnacion. You saw what happened when he went down in the playoffs when he twisted his ankle on the base. He's very important in that lineup. As long as he stays healthy, that's the main thing. He looked maybe a little bit bigger maybe this year in the games that I've seen.
I don't know. I mean, he's a power hitter. I mean, he hit 38 home runs last year, 107 RBIs.
He says, I got an inside the park homer. I'm not going to listen to either one of you guys say I can't run or anything else. I mean, you look at guys like that at that stage of their career, they're kind of heavy or whatever. Their idea is if I hit the ball at the park, I could walk around the bases. And it really is. And to Joe's point, it's one of the things we talked about Kluber being hurt, but Encarnacion spraining his ankle in that second game was huge because there is a hole in the lineup. And as for him starting slow, I know they should have kept that quick starter, Carlos Santana. He was always so good in the first 2 months of the year, right?
Edwin Encarnacion has 1 more homer than the Parrot does, right? He didn't bring
right.
that along with him for that home run. We are wrapping up. I want you guys to take a look at your programs that you have. If you have a green dot on it, then you get the bobblehead centerpiece on your table. Otherwise, it's a free-for-all and you can fight for it. And Paul, grab that microphone, will you? Thank you. Yeah. Folks, before we wrap here, I just want to have you show some appreciation for Mr. Paul Hoynes, Terry Pluto, Doug Lesmerises, and Joe Noga. Thank you all for being here for the breakfast. Go Tribe.